You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible.
There was a video that was put out by an anti-Trump group that really lays bare the lack of leadership we're seeing coming from Washington, D.C. All right, folks, check this out.
Crisis comes to every presidency. We don't blame that. What matters is how they handle it. Donald Trump didn't create the coronavirus, but he is the one who called hoax, who eliminated the pandemic response team, and who let the virus spread unchecked across America. Crisis comes to every president. This one failed. Unite the country is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Folks, what's interesting, though, Mustafa, is that you look at public polling. He's got high marks, above 50%, for handling of this. Approval rating has gone up, even though it's around 49% as well. But if you begin to break those numbers down, that was polling that was done a while ago. And what you're seeing is the cheerleading, how great we are, all these amazing things that we've done. But you have companies right now who have said point blank, they say that if the National Defense Production Act was put in place, they're saying that we would have actually been able to create those ventilators, and we would have had those ventilators already made, and they would have all been in place by mid-April or so. He said they would actually be there.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
All right, so a lot of y'all are always asking me about some of the pocket squares that I wear. Now, Robert don't have one on. Nope. Now, I don't particularly like the white pocket squares. I don't like even the silk ones. And so I was reading GQ magazine a number of years ago, and I saw this guy who had this pocket square here, and it looks like a flower. This is called a shibori pocket square. This is how the Japanese manipulate the fabric to create this sort of flower effect. So I'm going to take it out and then place it in my hand so you see what it looks like. And I said, man, this is pretty cool. And so I tracked down, it took me a year to find a company that did it. And so they make these about 47 different colors. And so I love them because, again, as men, we don't have many accessories to wear, so we don't have many options. And so this is really a pretty cool pocket square. Now, what I love about this here is you saw when it's in the pocket, you know, it gives you that flower effect like that. But if I wanted to also, unlike other, because if I flip it and turn it over, it actually gives me a different type of texture. And so therefore it gives me a different look. So there you go. So if you actually want to get one of these shibori pocket squares, we have them in 47 different colors. All you got to do is go to RolandSMartin.com/pocket squares. All right, so first of all, that graphic is way too small. So tomorrow we're going to run it right down here all across the screen. So it's RolandSMartin.com/pocket squares. All you got to do is go to my website and you can actually get this. Now, for those of you who are members of our Bring the Funk fan club, there's a discount for you to get our pocket squares. That's why you also got to be a part of our Bring the Funk fan club. And so that's what we want you to do. And so it's pretty cool. So if you want to jazz your look up, you can do that. In addition, y'all see me with some of the feather pocket squares. My sister, who's a designer, she actually makes these. They're all custom made. So when you also go to the website, you can also order one of the customized feather pocket squares right there at RolandSMartin.com/pocket squares. So please do so. And of course, it goes to support the show. And again, if you're a Bring the Funk fan club member, you get a discount. This is why you should join the fan club.
Now back to your Roland Martin Unfiltered video. You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible.
Here we go to my iPad. Let's go to the White House. Anthony Fauci is talking.
In different parts of the country. So the speed with which one can go from one to another, at the point at which you can even begin to think about the phase, is going to differ. So the one thing that I know, the urge we all have to get out there and get it over with, let's get back to normal, for a lot of good reasons, because there's a lot of suffering, economic and otherwise, in this country because of that. But again, as I've pleaded early on weeks ago, I plead with the American public, with the governors, with the mayors, for the people with responsibility. Although I know one has the need to leapfrog over things, don't do that. Do it in a measured way. This is a successful formula. The problem is, if we don't do that, there is a likelihood that we'll have a rebound. And the one way not to reopen the economy is to have a rebound that we can't take care of. So please, again, let me just close by pleading with the American public in general and those who are responsible leaders to carefully consider how we get back to normal. Thank you.
Could you talk a little bit about your expectations for the fall? We heard from Dr. Redfield and Dr. Burks. What do you see for the fall? Is it going to be embers or possibly no return of the virus at all?
You know, as I've said before here, when you look at an outbreak, it's two dynamic forces opposing each other. If you leave the virus to its own devices, it will take off if you do nothing to stop it. If you put into place the kinds of things that we talk about, first containment, and then hopefully you never get to mitigation, but containment is important. Those two forces are going to determine whether you're going to have a big outbreak. So what Dr. Redfield was saying, first of all, is that we will have coronavirus in the fall. I am convinced of that because of the degree of transmissibility that it has, the global nature. What happens with that will depend on how we're able to contain it when it occurs. And what we're saying is that in the fall, we will be much, much better prepared to do the kind of containment compared to what happened to us this winter. Now, the complicating issue is that unlike the syndromic and influenza-like observances that we have, that you could pick it up by clinically what's happening, it's going to get complicated by an influenza season. And I believe that's what Dr. Redfield was saying, that is going to be complicated. So whether or not it's going to be big or small is going to depend on our response. And that's what I think people sometimes have misunderstanding. Nobody can predict what is going to happen with an outbreak, but you can predict how you're going to respond to it. And that's really very important.
So you would caution against people thinking that in the fall there's not going to be coronavirus anymore and we won't have to worry about it. Or if it is, it'll be spotty and it won't be a big problem we have to worry about.
There will be coronavirus in the fall. If we do, which we won't, but let's take an imaginary period. We say, okay, coronavirus, forget about it. We're not going to do anything about it. It will take off. That's what viruses do. But that's not what's going to happen. We are going to respond to it to not allow it to do that.
Dr. Fauci, what happens when governors like Governor Kemp are not following this careful, measured plan and moving forward even without meeting the gating criteria?
Well, Well, you know, if I were advising the governor, I would tell him that he should be careful. And I would advise him not to just turn the switch on and go, because there is a danger of a rebound. And I know there's the desire to move ahead quickly. That's a natural human nature desire. But going ahead and leapfrogging into phases where you should not be, I would advise him as a health official and as a physician not to do that.
Okay. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, come back. Trump's talks, we bail away because I ain't trying to listen to him lie. He's a liar in chief, so I don't want to hear all that crap. So every single night, we've got some of the top black experts. You're not going to see them on cable news or broadcast news because you swear black people aren't experts when it comes to this health crisis. That's why we have this show and why we do what we do every day on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Joining us right now is retired General Russell Honore, the nation's first black Surgeon General, Dr. Joycelyn Elders.
John Hope Bryant, he's the founder of Operation Hope.
Senator Kamala Harris of California, Dr. Sadrina Calder, retired General Lloyd Austin, Congresswoman Karen Bass, Commissioner Omari Hardick, Bureau President in Brooklyn, Eric Adams, Dr. Joseph Graves, America's Wealth Coach, Deborah Owens, Dr. Corey Abear, Patel Salt, Howard University student, Pastor Jamal Bryant, Dr. Christy McDowell, Benja Ajilore, senior economist at the Center for American Progress, Gilda Daniels, again, author of the book, The Crisis of Voter Suppression in America. 4 stars, General Kip Ward. Dr. Oliver Brooks is president of the National Medical Association, president of the American Medical Association, Dr. Patrice Harris. Joby Benjamin, Dr. Alexia Gaffney, infectious disease specialist, Dr. Georges Benjamin, executive director of the American Public Health Association, Malcolm Nance, family medicine physician, Dr. Jen Caudle, Dr. Tashaka Cunningham, a molecular biologist, Kat Stafford. She's a national race and ethnicity reporter for the Associated Press. Dr. Wayne A.I. Frederick, who is the president of Howard University, Congresswoman Yvette Clarke from the state of New York, William Spriggs, AFL-CIO economist, Andrea James, executive director of the National Council for Incarcerated and Formerly Incarcerated Women and Girls. All right, let's go to Capitol Hill. Congressman Gregory Meeks, Congresswoman Eddie Johnson of Texas, Congresswoman Barbara Lee, Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar, mental health clinician Jamie Singletary, Prince George's County State's Attorney Aisha Brayboy, as well as Dylan Hayrie, ACLU Justice Division strategist. Dr. Cindy Duke, she's a virologist. Principal Steve Perry of Capitol Prep. Health and wellness specialist Dr. Yolandra Hancock. Desmond Meade, president of the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition. Cliff Albright, who is the co-founder of Black Voters Matter. Michael Harriot with The Root. Mina McWhorter, founder of Love by the Hand. Dr. Julianne Malvo, economist, president, Emerita Bennett College. Coroner Michael Fowler is the mayor of Atlanta. Keisha Lance Bottoms, mental health therapist Suzette Clark.
Justin Gibney, attorney and political strategist, and Bishop Vincent Matthews Jr.
Dr. Suzette McKinney, CEO and executive director of the Illinois Medical District. Dr. Leon Madugal, president-elect of the National Medical Association. Jana Bailey, mayor of Moss Point, Mississippi, Mario King.
We're going to keep driving this thing to make sure our people are fully aware, safe, protected from coronavirus. You're getting the top medical experts, the top business experts, top political experts, top religious experts, because that's why we do what we do. Unapologetically and unfiltered. Ain't nobody else in the black media space doing what we do. Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. Folks, as of today, there are 3.97 million confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the United States. 1.6 million people have recovered and 144,000 have died.
As the nations grapple with how to slow the spread, scientists work frantically to find a vaccine. Today, the United States announced they are giving $1.95 billion to two companies for the purchase of 100 million vaccines. Joining us right now is Dr. Joseph L. Graves, Jr., professor of biological sciences at North Carolina A&T University. Doc, glad to have you back on the show. What do you make of these companies saying they are seeing promising results of these vaccines and could have something by the end of the year? Do you believe it?
Yeah, I believe it. And I think it's good news. There have been some new techniques applied to the development of these vaccines. So I believe that we're going to have them. The problem, however, is the 100 million doses. Because, as you know, we have a population of 330 million people. So 100 million doses are going to have to be administered as quickly as possible, and people are going to need to take the vaccine for us to begin to get a handle on reducing the transmission of COVID-19. And at this point, there's no guarantee how that's going to happen.
And part of the issue when you talk about even that vaccine is then getting people to actually take it. And you got people out there, you got black people who are saying, man, I ain't trusting this whole thing. You got Tuskegee, you got all these white anti-vaxxers out there as well. And so that presents a huge problem. Hell, you got people right now who won't even put a damn mask on.
I mean, I don't know what to say, because I remember having this conversation with you back in early March and making these dire predictions of what would happen if people didn't change their behavior. And so now we're beginning to see this. And of course, the situation is made worse when the chief executive officer of the United States had no plan and certainly no intention of taking the actions necessary to try to stop the spread of this pandemic. The fact that he was more concerned with making himself look good for re-election, which of course he has failed to do because he hasn't effectively handled this pandemic, rather than listening to scientific experts and following and allowing them to develop a plan, has left us in the situation we're in today.
So in terms of where we go next, again, when it comes to these vaccines, when you hear Dr. Fauci, the head of CDC, says if we can get people in this country to shelter in place, put on masks, that we can truly get this under control in the next 1 to 2 months. Is that real? Is that legitimate?
Yeah, I believe that, and then the key thing again is people changing their behavior. And it's not just wearing a mask, but wearing a mask properly and maintaining social distance. One of the things that people need to understand is that even if you wear a mask, well, it cuts down the probability of spreading the infection by 80%. That effect only lasts about 5 minutes. And that is, if you're with someone else who's wearing a mask, it lasts for 5 minutes. So the key thing then again is if you're wearing a mask, you still have to understand that you can still transmit this virus, even if you're asymptomatic. So you have to avoid large groups of people. You have to maintain your physical distance, and you really should only be going out if you have to. And of course, the difficulty is that for many lower income poor people, and particularly African Americans and Latinos, those people have to go out and they have to work because the federal government hasn't acted to provide the supports in terms of, food and shelter that people need when, in fact, they're being asked to shelter in place.
You have the D.C. mayor who moments ago ordered requiring masks outside the home. Then, of course, you got Governor Brian Kemp, who's pissed off, and he wants to overrule all the mayors in Georgia who are trying to do the exact same thing. And so here you have mayors who are trying to be responsible. That's what happened in Texas. Mayor Sylvester Turner, Harris County Judge Hidalgo, they had mask mandates. Well, idiot Governor Greg Abbott overrules them. Then all of a sudden cases explode in Texas. And then he goes, we might need to have a mask mandate. We were trying to tell you that, dumbass.
Again, I hate it when I'm right, Roland. This is something, and I'm of the mind that these people need to be held accountable, because the science around mask wearing and simple means to prevent the spread of the coronavirus were well known. So none of this was a mystery to them, but yet they insisted on taking actions prematurely to try to, quote, reopen the economy. And again, I understand the need for people to work and to have a paycheck. So I'm not saying that there's not a concern there. But if you're talking about the difference between people dying and not being able to work, then I think we want to try to keep people alive. And that's what these people fail to understand.
All right, Dr. Joseph Graves, Jr., Professor, Biological Studies, Sciences at North Carolina A&T. We really appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Roland.
I don't know what it's going to take, Robert, to get these idiots to actually do what's right. I just really don't. I'm telling you right now, listen up, black people, and my white fans who are watching as well. Okay? Right now in the Bahamas, they ain't accepting nobody from the United States. Mexico, nope, y'all can't come here. Europe, y'all can't come here. Okay? Donald Trump talks about a wall. The whole world is putting basically a blockade on the United States because we got too many stuck on stupid people in this country who don't know how to keep their asses at home, who don't know how to put on masks, don't know how to wash their hands and protect themselves. Here we are, Teresa, 5 months. 5 months after this thing really began to pick up steam, and we're still dealing with folks who just want to run their ass out there and go to restaurants and bars and be on the beach and swim as if the Spanish flu wasn't real. 500 million people were infected with the Spanish flu from 1918 to 1920. An estimated 17 to 50 million died. These fools act like that can't happen again. But we got 144,000 Americans who've already died.
Yeah, I mean, look, and we got the archives to prove it because, Spanish flu allegedly, started here in Philadelphia. So, it's bad. We can buy, and, I keep going into supermarkets and CVS pharmacies and other small little bodegas, and I'm seeing the shelves empty of Clorox, hand sanitizer, soap in itself. And yet it's like, okay, well, that's enough. And so, when we start reopening, and legislators are saying, hey, we're into these phases where it is time to reopen, we have to really start thinking about a conscious understanding of what the environment actually looks like. One, it's summer, right? So people are looking for, that freedom during their summertime break. But part of it is we have to be very aware that this is a pandemic under new leadership that doesn't seem like leadership really has this under control. So really the escalation on the trend of this pandemic has, with after 5 months has been trending in the direction that we don't want it to trend in. So, it's interesting, when I saw some of the conversations that governors were having on TV, it was more so about we're going to reopen and we're not going to put any mandates on masks. We're just going to allow people to do what they know is best to do. And that's just not right. I mean, we have people who really just have a disregard for this pandemic and a disregard for their fellow neighbor. And so I live in an apartment complex. And so, even when we're going in the elevator, they're still doing 4 or 5 or more, and so it's issues like this when it's like, we can put in as many PSAs, we can educate the public about the seriousness of this, especially when we don't have the vaccine for it yet. But I think it really is a encompass of, the governors in order to really put a strict mandate that no person should be going to any establishment without a mask. Point, place, and period. And what has to happen, Scott, this has to be rigid. It has to be, put up some new signs. No shirt, no shoes, no mask, no service. And if you stay in your dumb ass out there yelling and screaming, trying to cuss personnel out, lock the damn door and stand there and yell. But the problem is you cannot change this when you've got these Republican governors who are, this is impacting our freedom. No, it's no, this shouldn't happen. And this also comes down to money.
And this whole deal is, if you want to understand America, everything comes down to money. Oh, we can't do this.
Right.
This is going to kill the businesses. No, what's going to kill the businesses are a bunch of dead people who can no longer come to your business.
Yeah. You know, Roland, I'm starting to think that this is not fixable the way we're doing it. That it's too inconsistent with groups of people in different states. You have a lot of people who are honoring all of the rules, if you will. They're doing their masks, they're washing their hands, they're staying home. But you have a whole nother group of people who are undermining that by doing just the opposite. That's why the numbers keep going up and down. And so I'm starting to think maybe until we get a vaccine, we're just going to be in this altered state, if you will, that sometimes you think you can go out, you can't, you're going to have these fluctuating numbers, or we need to be thinking about a different approach. I've never been a big fan of what they call hoarding, if you will, or whatever they call that.
Herding,
not hoarding. Herding. I've never been a big fan of that because I think there are too many people, as I understand the concept, too many people in America to be able to do that effectively. But I got to tell you, I don't need President Trump to agree with me to know I'm right, that this isn't working, because it's just too inconsistent. And if there's another way to do this until we can get a vaccine, or we just hunker down until we get a vaccine, that's just kind of what the facts are telling us right now. Because I hear you every week. Every week you say the same thing over and over again, Roland. And I mean, and because it's true.
Because here's the deal. Because if these fools don't want to listen,
that's right.
I'm going to tell y'all, Robert, if the rest of these folk want to kill themselves, that's cool. But also, stop having these stop having these get-togethers. I know somebody had a get-together, 10 people over the house, and they said, and I think, well, no, they were inside.
Oh, inside.
Oh, you know, we know one of the folks had it before.
No.
We were still fine. We were all wearing masks, but you know what happens? Folks take the mask off. They ain't wearing the whole
drink
time.
with that mask.
And guess what? His ass got coronavirus.
Oh,
he got it. Hey, Robert, can't nobody come to my house.
Well, Roland, I think part of the issue that we had is that from the beginning, we kept getting inconsistent information from leadership. There's this concept of medical martial law, which is the same way that in national security emergencies, the military takes over and runs the jurisdiction of the country, that we have to have the same for medical situations such as this. That because of the incorrect information that we got from leadership from the beginning, it'll be over by Easter. It'll magically disappear in April. The warm weather will just wash it away. 99.9% of the people will get better just automatically. We'll have a cure in a couple months. Take magical pills, drink bleach, UV light, all those things are why people do not understand exactly what the virus is. And when people don't get clear messaging and do not understand things, then they just go back to the status quo and do exactly what they feel like. You have a lot of people who don't understand that that when you're dealing with SARS-CoV-2, that it is a single strand of RNA inside of a lipid shell with a protein corona around it. When it gets into the lung system, it goes and attacks the alveoli first. And what makes it so insidious is that it slowly breaks its way into the alveoli. It basically hacks the system of your blood cells, infecting it and replacing sending its RNA, which then replicates, creating an inflammatory reaction called a cytokine storm. And that's normally what finally makes you sick and gets you into the hospital. The problem is that because that takes 2 weeks to sometimes more, you are walking around now expelling these RNA cells or these COVS2 cells into the air as you are moving. You're infecting other people. And that is what, if you just immediately fell into dust the minute you got it, then this would have been over in 2 weeks. But because it is so slowly interacting with individuals, because it so slowly infects them, and because the mortality rate is considered to be low, people think they can just walk around as normal and that nothing will happen to them. If we had consistent messaging from leadership and one consistent national policy, as we saw the EU do when they shut down the entire European continent, basically, as one nation, because remember, the EU is about the same size the United States of America has taken as a whole. The countries that did the full shutdown have now recovered and are doing well. Countries like Sweden, who tried to do herd immunity, are doing horribly. We have to follow the scientific information and not have this culture war around questions of, we're having a culture war about whether you should wear a mask or not. We're having a culture where there are COVID truthers out there who swear up and down that all these numbers are made up and inflated. You have people who are still pushing hydroxychloroquine as a cure when it's been debunked by literally every medical organization in the world. In order for this coronavirus truther conspiracy to actually be true, you would have to think that the EU, China, India, every major nation in the world, the NBA, NFL, every major corporation in the United States, every major medical organization known to mankind is all working together to conspire to stop Donald Trump from winning the re-election. That is what it takes for these conspiracy theories to be true, but you still have people pushing those, and that disinformation is what's hurting us.
And these Republican governors are so stupid, are so dumb. Brian Kemp, Ron DeSantis, Greg Abbott, that they are so hell-bent on not disagreeing with Donald Trump that they will literally kill people in their state because of their awful leadership. That is a fundamental problem.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one
It's
moment.
time to be smart. When we control our institutions, we win. This is the most important news show on television of any racial background. Y'all put $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 on this and keep this going. What you've done, Roland, since this crisis came out in full bloom. Anybody watching this, tell your friends. Go back and look at the last 2 weeks, especially of Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, hell, go back and look at the last 2 days. You've had sitting United States senators today, Klobuchar and Harris. Whatever you have that you can bring to Roland Martin Unfiltered to support it, please do, because this information may literally save your life.
Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.
Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible.
What we're seeing, folks, are tremendous spikes all across the country. We are seeing states, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Texas, report record cases around this nation. We also hear that Dr. Anthony Fauci, for 2 months, hasn't had any conversation with Donald Trump, briefed him at all. What the hell is the White House doing? Now, while that's going on, the White House doesn't even really want to pay any attention. They are trying to rush people, rush students back to the classrooms. But the problem is teachers are going to be reporting in a couple of weeks. I know this. My sister, her daughter, teachers. Is it safe for teachers to be going back to the classroom? Is it safe for students to be in the classes? Now, many businesses and entities have had to adapt to this, but what is going to happen when it comes to our children? Now, the president of the American Academy of Pediatrics, Dr. Sally Goza, says she is concerned that schools may be pressured into reopening too quickly. Another concern is the impact of young people being out of school for so long. Joining us right now is Congresswoman Jahana Hayes of Connecticut, who's a teacher and on the House Committee on Education and Labor. Congresswoman, glad to have you back on Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Thanks, Roland. Good to see you.
So, my brother used to teach. My sister is a teacher. My other sister is a teacher, and now her daughter's a teacher. So, I've got parents who are working polls in Texas, and folks are out there in public. You've got an administration who is trying to rush folks back into the classroom. You had Senator Rand Paul, when he was questioning Dr. Fauci, was going, what's the big deal? Why can't kids go back to school? You've got Texas Senator John Cornyn. I'm sorry, I'm going to say it. I'm native of Texas. My senator, he's an idiot by saying, we don't know if kids can get COVID-19 when you've got 7,000 kids who've gotten coronavirus in Florida. How concerned are you that this nation is about to send our children into a minefield, and not just them, but teachers, administrators, personnel, support staff? Are we actually ready?
Roland, I'm very concerned about everything you just described, because I know that so many of my colleagues, superintendents, that are going to have to stand in front of teachers and say to them, I can't guarantee that this is safe. And then those teachers in turn are going to have to stand in front of children. I mean, The thing is, people think that it's just about geography, that kids will go back to school and continue to learn. If kids are afraid, if kids are not healthy, if their families are sick, they will not learn. I, like everyone else, would like for kids to go back to school. My daughter's a teacher, but that conversation should start with, yes, we want to reopen schools, but then it should end with, and we are going to invest adequate funding to make sure that we hit all of the benchmarks to make sure people are safe. I think it's unconscionable that we have replenished PPP loans 3 times to make sure that small businesses were undergirded, and we can't make the same types of investments in schools. We're going to need at least $200 billion to do this. You know, businesses have a phased-in reopening, but we expect kids to go back when we don't have enough data to say how this virus interacts with children.
Well, not only that, is there an actual process? I remember a couple of months ago, I showed a video of what a particular Chinese school did. Parents dropped the kid off. They came in, temperature check. They also sprayed something on their shoes, on their feet. They also then sprayed their whole body. Then also, so there was like this whole process. And I'm sitting there going, okay, I got twin nieces. And we've gotten an email where they've laid out, and I'm sort of like, okay. The email said essentially that they'll be in school twice a week. They have to walk on one side of the hallway, safe distance. And I'm still going, really?
You're right. Many of these plans, I mean, my own state put out a 50-page plan, and I looked at the plans from many other states, and you're left with more questions than answers. Most of our schools don't have adequate ventilation. I mean, I don't know when the last time someone has been in a school, but we have buildings that are 50 years old that don't have ventilation, that don't have windows that open. You know, FEMA has already said that they are not prioritizing school districts or purchasing PPE for them. So districts will be competing in the market for PPE, for masks and whatever else they need. And most of that stuff is already on back order. We're only a couple weeks out. There still is no national strategy. And then I think we cannot overlook the fact that the communities that were hit the hardest by COVID, our urban communities, our Title I districts, our 100% free and reduced lunch districts, are going to be the same communities that struggle to reopen because they don't have the resources to do it on their own. I mean, Congress allocated, I think it was about $13 billion in the CARES Act. There's state and local municipality funding in the HEROES Act. And then we just did the Moving Forward Act to help with school infrastructure. But I think there needs to be emergency intervention right now, where there's a standalone bill with standalone funding with national guidelines coming from the Department of Education. This has been politicized, and now teachers and parents have to make a choice on the backs of their children to jumpstart the economy and return us to normal. We cannot return to normal until we are healthy again.
Again, as I begin to just to look at this whole deal, parents are obviously worried because they're dealing with the fact that, will my child get behind? The online learning is not equal. I know of a suburban school district in Houston. They're going to be 100% online. They have the resources for laptops, for pads. They have. I mean, that's a different environment. I remember reading a story a couple of months ago in Chicago, the high number of children tracking who were not even logging on. Mm-hmm. They were able to see how many of them, they weren't even logging on. And so, again, you're now talking about not 2 or 3 months. We're not talking about a school year. That might be the case for 9 months.
Mm-hmm. So, and I think that's part of my challenge, because back in February when we were first discussing what might happen, and then in March when there was a national conversation, state after state deciding to shut down, schools were looked at as places for babysitters so parents could work, or making sure that kids eat, or, you know, they had to have a safe space. And now we're talking about we need to reopen because they're lonely. All of those things are definitely societal problems, and I'm glad that we're having a national conversation about the achievement gap and kids missing education time, but to not discuss their health. So for the same doctors that are saying kids are lonely and they need to get back, they should be demanding that we have the funding so that we have trauma-informed counselors to meet them when they return from the most traumatic experience in their life. So yes, I agree with everyone that kids need to go back to school, but the purpose of school is the academics. All of these other societal problems, we need to deal with those as well. We need to stabilize childcare. We need to make sure that families are food secure, but not send kids back to school because we want to make sure all of those things happen when we cannot guarantee their safety. And then to ask teachers to have to make that choice. And every plan that I've read, there's no mention of, if a faculty member says I'm feeling symptoms and I want to get tested, can I get tested? Most of that is you need to do that on your own. So there's so many issues that we are not even addressing.
Wait. I'm sorry. Roll back. Are you saying, hold on, let's roll that back.
Yeah.
That if in the middle of teaching, if all of a sudden a teacher says, I'm not feeling well, they don't have protocols in place to test the teacher on site?
Right. These are state by state issues, but in my state particular, and this is a question that I've asked my commissioner, my governor, and every superintendent I talk to, there is no plan for universal testing. And my next question was, if I'm a custodian or a secretary or a paraprofessional or a teacher or anyone in the building, and I say, I'm having symptoms, I would like to get tested, it is incumbent upon the employee to find community-based testing or something else. It's not seen as an occupational exposure. We don't know enough about this virus, and we are sending our teachers almost into battle without any gear, without, any covering. And that's just not fair. A month ago, my colleagues are talking about the Herculean efforts that teachers were making, and now the conversation has shifted to, oh, they're just lazy and they don't want to go back. And I'm sick and tired of people using teachers as the scapegoat and this binary choice where, they're presented as martyrs, where if you're not doing this, then you don't care about kids. I think it's just the opposite. Teachers know better, and they do care about kids, and they know that they can't guarantee the safety of these children. And when the Secretary of Education comes out and says everything from riding a bike to going up in a space shuttle, how do you expect for teachers to fall in line behind a message like that?
Well, not only that, we're not just talking about children. And I think that's what people understand. You're talking about children, teachers, administrators, support staff, and
faculty, bus drivers, everyone.
Right. And
what are you going to do when a parent wants to come into the school? What are you going to do? College campuses are shutting down or saying they're not letting their freshmen in. A high school senior is only a couple months removed from a college freshman. What's the difference? What are you going to do when you have a senior in high school who refuses to wear a mask? And then this leads into discipline issues. These are all of the scenarios that I've encountered on a good year. And nobody's factoring these in the middle of a pandemic. And it is not okay.
Well, now you also have the other issue, and that is, if, as an adult, if I have to self-quarantine for 14 days, I can do that. A kid can't self-quarantine. That kid is still going to be interacting with that parent during that period.
There are so many issues here, Roland. I mean, I lived with my grandma. I was raised by my grandmother when I was going to school, and she had so many underlying health issues. What are we going to do with the kids who have medically fragile people in their families? My husband had COVID-19, and when he first presented, he didn't have any symptoms. He didn't have a fever. We just heard Keisha Lance Bottom say the same thing. So when you have kids in these communal settings, staff coming and going, and in most of our district, staff don't live in the community. They're commuting back and forth. This is not how we contain this virus. And I don't want to appear as if I don't want kids to go back to school. The number one indicator the number one in-school indicator for student success is the relationship they have with their teachers, effective teachers in front of students. But to do that when we can't guarantee their safety, just to return to normal and jumpstart the economy, and now as a part of a political game that's being played, Roland, in the worst possible scenario, I don't want to be sitting here with you in 6 months having this conversation saying we made a mistake. We moved too fast. And when it comes to our children, we should spare no expense. We should not, take any chances and use them as an experiment.
All right. Congresswoman Jahana Hayes, we certainly appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Roland.
All right, folks, let's go to my panel here. I want to talk to them. Rob Richardson, host Disruption Now podcast, and also Amisha Cross, political analyst and Democratic strategist. Rob, this is serious in that we are seeing, again, Texas and Florida, where these numbers are just really, really increasing. I really think we've got to understand what's about to happen. I mean, this is scary for a lot of people.
Yeah, well, we have to actually pay attention to data, which a lot of these politicians and people in power don't like data. If you look at other nations, we are exceptional now. We're not exceptional in the way we want to be, but we're exceptional in the fact that we can't get this under control because we just don't want to follow data. We want to follow whatever this idiot in the White House is saying. So you have people doing stupid things and just rebelling against social distancing, rebelling against putting on a mask, rebelling against things that work. Science works. So right now you are seeing that happening. And so this is not surprising. And my hope is that we actually get some control and people realize that we have to take steps. We're not through this. And in fact, it's getting much worse because we didn't do the things we need to do on the front end.
Amisha.
I absolutely agree with what Rob just said. We are right now a ship without a captain. We are a leaderless nation. And for all intents and purposes, we've watched our COVID-19 response fall apart because of it. Not only did this president ignore the fact that COVID-19 was a threat, he thought it could be contained to China. He also, instead of giving any authorization or any real leadership from the White House, he decided to leave things up to the states. And not because he had great faith in the states, but because he didn't want any blowback on himself. And even when he told the states that it was up to them to decide when they would be ready to reopen and what their next steps would be, he took to Twitter to call out states who decided that they were going to actually follow CDC guidelines and enforce social distancing, require masks. This has been a president from day one who has decided to go against and not believe in science. And now we're seeing the fruits of that ignorance. We're seeing the fruits of that illegitimacy. And our nation is suffering because of it. And the world is watching us. This is the first time in America's history where we've seen countries in Europe, we've seen countries in multiple places decide that they don't even want Americans to travel there. That is not something that we do as Americans. That's not something we've seen. And this is President Trump's legacy, someone who doesn't know what he's doing and is basically taking this country in the wrong direction. And I'm afraid that, leading into 2020 in the election, we're going to see a lot more devastating things come out of COVID-19, especially as we walk into the fall months where the flu season is going to tick up and we're going to be battling two things at once.
Michael, go ahead.
No, I'll just say very quickly, this has also been, COVID-19 has been less of a disruptor. It's been a disruptor in the short term, and it's accelerated long-term trends. So when you talk about just like the Congresswoman talked about, when you talk about access to broadband, which we always needed and communities didn't have, now that we don't have that, it's accelerating the inequalities that we already see. The fact that we don't have universal pre-K, other nations have that. That's another reason why they were able to handle this. And you look at our healthcare system, it's a for-profit system that incentivizes not actually giving people access to healthcare. These things are now crippling us and really preventing us from being able to respond. So all of these things are really affecting this in a really serious way. So it's going to be a long road.
Michael Brown, former vice chair at DNC Finance Committee. The reason I think this is so different is that when we talk about businesses shutting down, we're dealing with adults who can make independent decisions when it comes to self-quarantine, when it comes to how careful they are. Look, I don't have biological children, but my wife and I have raised 6 of my nieces from a year and a half all the way up to being in their 20s. We got twin nieces right now who are 16. I'm sorry, they don't think the same way as adults, how decisions are made. And I'm sitting here going, okay, I'm very leery of sending them into a school situation because I'm not sure how other children will be dealing with social distancing, things along those lines. I know what I can control here in my workspace. I don't necessarily have the same thing when I talk about my nieces.
Well, I have 3 sons, and 2 of which are in college, and I just can't imagine how I have no faith in them that they will say social distance on campus. How are we expecting 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12-year-old young people So there is no way they're going to be able to do this properly without obviously some consequences. We hope it doesn't happen, but the question is, it could. And then what's concerning, Roland, and you and I have talked about this, I know everything, whether it's a disease, whether it's a tax cut, it's all political. And frankly, I'm not sure the Senate was in play before COVID-19 hit. This president, 45, has messed us up so much that I think he's put the Senate in play. More than in play, I think actually the Senate not just flips, but flips significantly by possibly 5 or 6 seats. Because Arizona's gone, you can forget that. Cory Gardner's finished. And so Willis is probably finished. So I just don't know how you keep the Senate. And because these enablers have let him deal with this disease and this crisis the way he has, he's hurt them too.
Well, I certainly get the whole politics of it. I think, again, what you're dealing right now is fear. And you're dealing with real fear of a lot of parents out there. And I'm telling them, Misha, all it's going to take is for 30, 40, 50 cases in a school, and you're going to have pandemonium of parents pulling their kids out, and then what do you do?
And Roland, you're right. And the issue is we've already seen those numbers. We've seen them in early child care centers and pre-K centers, particularly in the South. We've seen where there have been 70 plus staff members who got sick, and for these child care centers that reopened, they had to immediately close back down and parents pull their children out. That's at the ECE level. At ECE, most centers don't have hundreds of students. When we're talking about your elementary school, middle school, and high school, they definitely do. That means you have to reduce class sizes. Right now, your average class size is 25 to 30 students. CDC guidelines tell us 15 or less. So that means you have to have space in your school building that accommodates that. It means you have to split up your teachers. It means you have to stagger schedules. It means that you have to be concerned about the paraprofessionals, the teachers who may themselves already be more vulnerable. It means the cafeteria workers, where are these kids going to eat, because no longer can we house them in a cafeteria room eating at the same time for lunch. What do you do when you can't have them on buses together? How are we going to make this work? And school districts and teachers have been grappling with this for months. And I get it, as you spoke earlier, that the online learning, that the distance learning hasn't necessarily been working well. But I would posit, and teachers do as well, that sending kids back before we have something in place that actually makes sense, before we have those structures in place and the designs necessary, according to CDC recommendations, would result in a complete failure. A lot of teachers, paraprofessionals, parents, grandparents, and other people getting sick. And we know what that is going to look like. So I think that it's just extremely detrimental and extremely idiotic for the president to be pushing something like this, and to also have the support of many Republican governors who they were willing to risk our grandparents a few months ago, and today they're willing to risk the kids, the parents, the teachers, and everybody else.
But what you're dealing with here that really is a fundamental problem. This is where failure of leadership comes in.
Absolutely.
This is where, Rob, having an administration, there is no way in the world a Dr. Anthony Fauci should give an interview and say he hasn't briefed the president in 2 months. That can happen. You can't have somebody sitting in the Oval Office contradicting the Centers for Disease Control and their rules when it comes to opening schools. You can't. This is an absolute travesty of what we're witnessing, of epic proportions, of an administration that is grossly unprepared and who doesn't care about the people.
Doesn't care, grossly unprepared, and doesn't care. Doesn't care at all, doesn't care about the consequences, because leadership, people follow what the leader do, no matter what. People say that they're independent. If you look at what they do, people are following in line. Many Republicans, many of his followers, and they are resisting, and it's causing people's lives. It's causing their lives, it's causing other lives, and it's causing the economy to go backwards. It's not going to help them. It's not going to help them get reelected. I would just say this. I think Michael talked about earlier, not necessarily having faith in some younger kids to not socially distance. I don't have faith in a lot of the American people. They're showing that they don't want to do it. Like we're watching that. We have at least 30% of the American people that are just going to say, I don't care. And what we know is they're going to carry it on, and we're going to continue this process. And kids are carriers. They may be less prone to getting sick from COVID-19, but they're not less prone to being carriers and getting their grandmother sick and getting other people sick. So are we just saying, or getting administrators sick, as Amisha and you, Roland, pointed out? So are we just saying those people don't matter anymore? This has gone away? I mean, I just don't understand any of it. I really don't.
Michael.
It's so problematic when you have, and everything comes back to the leader. Now, Mayor Bottoms just announced she's probably going to roll back where they are in Atlanta, because forget school. They're not even thinking about that. They just know that their communities are not safe and not ready. Obviously, the red state leaders or red state mayors of states and cities are trying to make sure this guy gets reelected. They don't care about their constituents. They don't care that more than 133,000 people have died. And that's just what's on record, is probably more. So and I know everyone's mentioned it, without the proper leadership, I don't even know why, and I'm being a little facetious, but I don't even know why the media covers 45 anymore. He's irrelevant, because all he's doing is talking to about 25, maybe 26% of the people in America. The rest aren't even listening to him anyway. So I don't know why we're following him either.
Amisha, again, I just think that what we're dealing with right now, we're dealing with a group of people who frankly don't give a damn. I think you're seeing the result of that in polling numbers. And I'll say this here, and the Lincoln Project has said this as well. Every single Republican senator who has allowed this nonsense to go on should lose their job in November. Every one. I have absolutely, John Cornyn, you need to go. Arizona, Maine, North Carolina, Georgia, Colorado, Montana, these people have allowed this to go on. No hearings, no challenges. No, it's like, oh, no, we're scared. Whatever Trump wants to do, we're fine with it. People are dying, and these people are playing games, and we've lost 133,000 people.
I agree with you 100%, Roland. My fear, though, is that there is a considerable percentage of the American population that does not. There are people who consistently don't want to wear masks, refuse to social distance. I have absolutely no problem with what this president is saying, irrelevant to the actual numbers that we're seeing of COVID-19 cases tick up. I think that what Trump has done is lull the American psyche and help to actually, infiltrate I is me type of understanding, so we can be isolationists, we can do whatever we want. He's hardcore, he's pushing this ideology that to a lot of people is something that they still believe in, and I don't actually know what those people will have to see before that changes. And like I've heard you say on this show multiple times, 2020 is going to be, November is going to be a turnout race. It is not just going to be us watching COVID numbers or watching unemployment numbers rise or watching the consistent failures of Donald Trump. He's done that since he got elected in 2016. However, we haven't seen a huge tide change in terms of his electorate and that base that continues to support him. So I don't necessarily think that these numbers are going to move them. What I do think will, and holds the possibility of doing so, is if there was a heightened risk with opening these schools, because people don't naturally want to risk their kids. They also don't really want to risk their grandparents. But I think that what we're seeing right now is a nation that has been lulled to idiocracy because of the man who happens to be in the White House. And I don't think that that changes anytime too soon, irrespective to the COVID numbers that we're seeing.
Yeah, bottom line is
to hope that our America looks different, but that's a hard sell.
These nuts are going to continue yelling and screaming about masks. Is going to continue.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
folks, you know we support black-owned companies right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Well, Seek.com is one of those companies. Mary Spio, she is the founder. She is the architect, the inventor. These two products here, these are virtual VR headset where you can pop your phone right in. You can watch a 360-degree video right from your phone with this particular headset. You can also go to their website, Seek.com, and look at the programming that they have that's also virtual reality. They also have these great headphones right here, folks. Allows you to listen to music. If you're a gamer, you can also do that. 360-degree headphones, 4D. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. All you got to do is simply go to and use this promo code. If you want to get either one of those items, go to promo code is right there. RMVIP2020. RMVIP2020. Pop that in. Will allow you to be able to get the products. That's how you can support them and how you can support Roland Martin Unfiltered. And so again, Seek.com, Seek.com.
It's time to be smart. When we control our institutions, we win. This is the most important news show on television of any racial background. Y'all put $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 on this and keep this going. What you've done, Roland, since this crisis came out in full bloom. Anybody watching this, tell your friends. Go back and look at the last 2 weeks, especially of Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, hell, go back and look at the last 2 days. You've had sitting United States senators today, Klobuchar and Harris. Whatever you have that you can bring to Roland Martin Unfiltered to support it, please do, because this information may literally save your life.
Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. Former National Security Advisor, Ambassador Susan Rice, believes that we are in the middle of two pandemics, coronavirus and racism. She also believes that both are national security threats. She joins us right now. Susan Rice, how you doing?
I'm great, Roland. How you doing?
Oh, you know, sitting here having to deal with stupid people who are 3 blocks away from my office, who reside in the White House, who say truly some of the dumbest stuff in the world. When you hear that nonsense, this refusal to condemn the Confederate flag and then say, oh, the people who are flying it, they aren't thinking about slavery. This is no big deal. It's freedom of speech. And if they want to fly it, you know, at my rallies, okay, whatever. Donald Trump is absolutely, Ambassador, appealing to the most hardcore racist or folks in pushing those buttons. Agree or disagree?
Absolutely agree. I mean, the dog whistle has become a bullhorn. And the blower of that bullhorn is the modern day George Wallace. And, you know, it's that bad. It really is. And, you know, we've got the president expressing much more concern for Confederate monuments and flags than he is for the lives of Americans, over 135,000 of whom have died on his watch because his utter failure to handle the coronavirus. So he's made clear what his priorities are and how he intends to run for re-election, which is by pouring salt in the racial wounds and trying to, you know, divide this country.
When you look at that decision made by the defense secretary, and then you hear the nonsense from Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State. I mean, this is the individual. I mean, it's two contrasts. Secretary of Defense says you can't fly the Confederate flag at military bases. It's just not allowed. Then you overhear Secretary Mike Pompeo just in denial about how this nation was created, as if somehow that we haven't been dealing with racism, slavery, Jim Crow, and still dealing with the vestiges of that. I mean, these are so-called leaders, and these are leaders for the rest of the world. As somebody who's been on an international stage, it has to absolutely drive you crazy to see that as the representation of the United States.
Well, it does rather pain me to see this, to say the least. But, you know, it's actually a really serious challenge because consistent with our values and our leadership in the world, we should be condemning racism. We should be condemning anti-Semitism, homophobia, all of the ways in which discriminatory or autocratic societies abuse the rights of their people. And rather than speaking up with moral authority, we're modeling much of that behavior here at home. And at the same time, drastically diminishing our global leadership and our ability to bring other countries and peoples to join with us to deal with challenges that affect our security and our prosperity and well-being. So it's not just about, Secretary Pompeo being insensitive, even though, to put it politely, he is. It's about squandering our leadership in the role and undermining our national security as a consequence.
And when we talk about that, now again, after 8 years of President Barack Obama, not only, obviously being the first black president in American history, and that type of diplomacy, to see this, for lack of a better phrase, this thuggish foreign policy, this grotesque display that we see across the world, what are you hearing from foreign leaders who you still talk with? How are they looking at us? How are they viewing this country in this moment of an international pandemic and global financial issues, and you're still dealing with wars and things along those lines? What are they saying about us?
Well, Roland, they're looking at us with dismay and disbelief. They can't believe how far we've fallen so fast. And the coronavirus, which, in normal times, the expectation would be that America would be doing among the best in the world in confronting a pandemic and being of assistance to other countries that have less, that are wrestling with far less developed healthcare systems and structures. Being a leader in stamping out the pandemic around the world, as we tried to do, for example, in 2014, a different scenario, but with the Ebola epidemic. That is our traditional role, rallying the world to deal with a problem effectively and not letting it get out of control here at home. In this instance, under President Trump, we've done absolutely the opposite. We've withdrawn from the global stage. We've taken our marbles and gone home from the World Health Organization, precisely the instrument that is needed to help coordinate assistance to the world's most needy countries. And we have utterly failed and set the worst possible example for how to deal with this virus here at home. The highest infection rates, the largest numbers of deaths, and it's due to incompetence, dishonesty, a failure to follow the science, and increasingly willful neglect. When the president is telling students and our children and their teachers and the staff of schools that he doesn't care about their health, he cares about his reelection, and he views all of this through a political prism, that's when you know that we're in deep, deep trouble. And we truly are. And the world can see that. And they are just hoping that we have the sense to bring sanity back to the White House in 2021.
Your book is called Tough Love. Here we go, show Tough Love, My Story of the Things Worth Fighting For. If you were sitting in front of a group of red hat wearing MAGA people, what tough love would you give them to say why they should not vote for this man again to be given 4 more years?
Well, look, we need leadership that recognizes fundamentally that at the end of the day, we're all Americans. And we sink or swim in the country between our shores together. Right now, we're sinking, but we don't have to allow that to be the case. Americans of every political persuasion are dying. Americans of every political persuasion are losing their jobs. And what we need is leadership that puts the national interest and the interest of Americans first, regardless of where they live, regardless of how they vote, regardless of what they look like or who they worship or who they love. And we're not getting that right now. We're getting leadership that is choosing to put political self-interest above the livelihoods of all people, regardless of their political background. You know, the president goes to Oklahoma, the heart of red America, and holds a rally without social distancing, knowing that the consequence is going to be death. Now the governor of Oklahoma has COVID, and the rate of infection has spiked in the weeks since the president was there. So how is that helping anybody? And everybody with any sense understands that as long as the infections are raging, we can't sustainably reopen our economy. We can't put people back to work, which is what we all want to do. We all want to send our kids back to school. That's not a red issue or a blue issue. We're Americans. We want to educate our kids. We want them to be safe and have the opportunity to learn. And yet, because of this president who puts himself above everything else, that's not being, it's not been possible. And he's going out of his way to rush through, deny the severity of the disease, pressure school districts, and pressure politicians to follow his deadly lead. And we cannot afford that. None of us can.
When we think about America's standing internationally, the world has always looked to this nation to be a moral leader. Not always been the case. We've been that. Let's say Trump loses in November. What's the first thing that a Joe Biden administration has to do to let the world know that that's now in our past and this is what we have to do moving forward?
Well, Roland, let me answer that, but let me just put the answer in context.
Mm-hmm.
I think Americans need to understand that it's not a matter of simply flipping a switch and everything goes, back to a place where our leadership is immediately embraced and all is forgotten. A huge amount of damage has been done.
Mm-hmm.
Trust has been broken. People can no longer believe the word of the President of the United States on matters large and small. Everything is a transaction. Our allies are treated like adversaries. Our adversaries are embraced like, family members. It's absolutely upside down. And so as Americans, we need to understand that the first thing we must do is vote for change. And voting for Joe Biden, who has enormous experience, great relationships, the trust and the confidence of the most important partners we have on the global stage, is a critical and absolutely necessary first step. But we will have great work to do over the course of a next administration. And it's not going to all be done in 4 years, maybe not even in 8 years, because Roland, understand that these very countries, particularly our closest partners, our allies in Europe, in Asia, and elsewhere, no longer can be confident that what we just did over the last 4 years can't possibly happen again. They have to fear that, that it's conceivable that we could come back to a place like this. So their trust will come back, but it will come back slowly, and it will need to be rebuilt with tangible action. So the first thing that Joe Biden should do as he enters the White House, knock on wood, in January 2021, is to reach out to our closest allies and neighbors, Canada, Mexico, our European partners, our partners in Asia, Australia, Japan, South Korea, and say to them, look, we understand that what has transpired has not been helpful. It hasn't been a partnership based on mutual interest and shared values and mutual respect. It's been bullying and transactional and based on falsehood. That is all going to change. We are back. We honor our alliance commitments. We understand that this is not a protection racket and it's not solely about dollars and cents. It's about our mutual interests and our shared security. And we will be here with you. And then we're going to have to take steps, concrete steps, that demonstrate that commitment. So, for example, we pulled out of the Paris Climate Agreement unilaterally after we had negotiated it. We have to go back We pulled out of various other important agreements like the Iran deal. We have to take a new look at that. But most importantly, we need to be clear with our allies that at the end of the day, they are what matters most to us, because our strength in the world is a function of those alliance relationships. And so, President Trump recently said we're pulling a third of our forces out of Germany unilaterally without ever consulting with the German government. Reversing that step and many others like it is the kind of concrete thing Joe Biden will need to do on day one. Rejoining the World Health Organization, as he said he'll do on day one. That's the sort of thing that signals that we're really back and we mean it.
In your book, Tough Love, Henry, go to my iPad, you write about that last day as National Security Advisor. You lay out the things that you had to deal with. And one of the things you said, I have had to spend many hours on additional tasks briefing my successor as National Security Advisor, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. That case is completely unraveled. You see what the Attorney General, William Barr, did. And as somebody who served in that position, as somebody who was ambassador to the United Nations, to watch that and then watch how the DOJ operated and watch how Donald Trump celebrated that and then say, oh, sure, I would hire this person again. I mean, you write about these are positions of public trust. The public has to trust people like you, that you will do things in the best interest of the nation and not personally.
Of course. And, I don't want to get into the specifics of Michael Flynn and his circumstances, but the bottom line is that we need the best and the most committed people of integrity and experience in these critical roles. And that is something that I can promise you Joe Biden will bring. He will bring those that care deeply about this country, who are not in it for personal, financial, or other form of gain, that are there to do the job that the American people trust and expect them to do. And we've time and again seen too often in the Trump administration, people signing up for who aren't qualified, who don't deserve the public trust, and who fail to deliver, and whose only motivation is to be acolytes to Donald Trump as he destroys the fabric of our democracy and the integrity of our government. And so that urgently needs to change.
You also talked about that last day writing a particular memo that has been the subject of lots of conversation, assessing Russian activities and intentions in recent U.S. elections. We have less than 120 days. Are you still concerned that Russia will try to impact this election? And does it bother you that pretty much our nation, in terms of leaders, Mitch McConnell didn't move on a particular bill to fortify the elections? Trump doesn't care that even with all this evidence, their whole deal is like, we're fine, we're good.
Yes, Roland, I'm deeply worried about it. Russia has not stopped for a minute trying to undermine and weaken our democracy. It interfered to assist Donald Trump in 2016, but it has been active every day since that election, including in the 2000. But just on every average day, trying to deepen the divisions that exist in American society and pit Americans against each other, causing us to distrust and hate each other and not believe in the integrity of our democratic institutions. The Russian objective is to discredit democracy and weaken the United States. And it can accomplish that goal if it gets on the internet, as it does every day, and argues on every side of every divisive issue, whether it's race or guns or immigration or gay rights, and they're out there spinning truths and falsehoods to divide us. And that is a very serious threat, and that will translate into the same kinds of misinformation, suppression of voter interest, and selling of lies and discredited theories that they did in 2016. I fully expect that in this year, in 2020, and Americans need to be prepared. And yes, it's a travesty that Mitch McConnell and Senate Republicans refuse to enact legislation that's been sitting on their floor for months to shore up the integrity of our elections and make it much more difficult for Russia or any other foreign player to do what it seeks to do. They won't provide the funding. They won't pass the legislation that would protect our elections. And the only explanation that one rationally can come up with is because they are prepared to welcome that assistance from Russia and other adversaries as long as they feel it's beneficial to them. Again.
A couple of questions about Africa. Here we are dealing with 7 of the 10 fastest growing economies are African nations. Look at the population growth from the motherland as well. China, significant investment in African nations. Has this nation dropped the ball in terms of not recognizing what that future could look like? Have we done enough to stand with African nations to help them economically, to work with them? Can we do more?
Yes, we absolutely can do more, and we should do more. And Roland, we should view this opportunity to be better partners with Africa as not a matter of charity or humanitarian assistance, even though there's good motive in doing that. It's in our national interests to have partners in Africa that are growing, that are prospering, that are providing greater freedoms and greater benefits to their peoples. Africa is a vast continent of enormous talent, extraordinary resources, and great potential. And if we are absent or disinterested or under-resourced in our efforts to engage in Africa, we are missing an opportunity. We're missing economic opportunities, we're missing market opportunities, but most importantly, we're missing an opportunity to grow with the talent and the potential of an extraordinary collection of peoples on that continent. And, there's much we should be doing. We should be promoting peace and conflict resolution. We should be shoring up democracy and respect for human rights. We should be opening our markets further to African goods and spurring investment from the United States in Africa, providing more in the way of political risk insurance. We do some of these things, more or less, depending on the administration. We should be, investing in bringing electrification to parts of Africa, training and supporting the development of youth and talent and education, agricultural resources, health, and trying to improve healthcare infrastructure in Africa, all of these things. And yet, in recent years in particular, I think much of our engagement with Africa has been viewed primarily through the prism of competition with China, which is necessary but far from sufficient. And as a result, we have really scaled back our vision and our ambition for what the U.S.-Africa relationship can be.
You are on Vice President Biden's short list to be his VP nominee. Most of the folks, obviously, who are being considered are not necessarily talking about it. Our audience, mostly African Americans, got a lot of white fans as well, so we certainly appreciate that. What would you say to Black America if Susan Rice becomes a nominee? What would you say why that matters and what you bring that's important?
Well, Roland, first of all, I have to say it is really humbling and an honor to be among those reportedly being considered for the vice presidency by Joe Biden. And he has an extraordinary list of women, any of whom I think would do a great job in that role. And I think it's going to be very hard for him to go wrong. So everybody brings a different set of skills, experiences, and talents, and they're all exceptional. My experience and what I would bring to a partnership with Joe Biden on behalf of the country is my years of experience at senior levels in the executive branch. For over 15 years, almost 2 decades. I've worked in the White House and in the State Department and at the United Nations in the top tiers of our federal government. And when I was National Security Advisor, I was responsible for chairing and coordinating the cabinet-level committee of agencies that had to deal with every crisis that fell on our plate, whether it was the rise of ISIS or the Ebola epidemic and everything in between. So what I know is how to make decisions to forge policy out of different agencies with different and different interests and constraints, how to get stuff done. And in a moment when the next president will inherit, assuming it's Joe Biden, a pandemic, an economic recession, a racial justice movement that needs to be fulfilled, and as we've discussed, our plummeting leadership role in the world, the need to have the government firing on all cylinders and being able to address those multiple simultaneous challenges is greater than ever. So my experience is in getting things done at the highest levels of government. I understand national security, foreign policy, diplomacy, obviously intimately, but I also understand many of the domestic issues that will inevitably arise. And I would be honored to be able to assist Joe Biden in whatever capacity he thinks that I can best serve.
You mentioned
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you mentioned the issue of racial justice. That is going to be a significant domestic agenda.
Absolutely.
I have argued that in this moment of the reckoning, we're really operating in what I call the third Reconstruction. And so we're seeing these changes. We're seeing, I mean, it's been 9 weeks since the death of George Floyd, and we've seen significant amounts of change. But really, to deal with the inequality in this country, it is going to take massive reinvestment by this country. A massive plan, some call, an urban Marshall Plan, if you will, to deal with these difficult challenges. Have you thought about that and how major that needs to be, and to keep people focused on that? The first Reconstruction lasted 12 years. The second one lasted 14 years. I mean, this is something that's not going to just one bill, here you go, we're good. There's going to have to be a real commitment, or Dr. King wrote in Chaos of Community, Where Do We Go From Here? He said, it's a check America's going to have to write that it has never really wanted to write before.
Well, Roland, I've thought a lot about it, as many of us have. And, to me, we've had this extraordinary movement following the tragic murder of George Floyd. And thus far, that movement has really resulted concretely only in some flags and some statues being retired. And that's not nearly enough. That is, in my judgment, a missing of this moment. As gratifying as it may be to see the Confederate flag come down from the State House in Mississippi or from NASCAR, that's not what this is about. Systemic racism, in my judgment, requires systemic reform. And whether you call it a third Reconstruction or a New Deal or whatever the terminology you prefer, to me, we need a president like Joe Biden in the White House with the commitment and the vision and the passion to address these systemic requirements. And we need change in the Senate and sustaining the House, because without all three, we're not going to get this done. Look at the Justice in Policing Act, the George Floyd Act, good piece of legislation passed by the House. Do you think Mitch McConnell's going to let that thing go anywhere in any recognizable form in the Senate? No. And there's nothing radical or ridiculous or, even aggressive in that legislation. So that's emblematic of the problem. And to address this moment with a movement worthy of it and results that reflect that movement, we're going to need a sustained package of legislation that deals with all of the inequities, from the lack of jobs and economic opportunity, to healthcare, to education, to housing, to the environments that we live in that are killing us. All of these things are going to have to come together. And we need to implement them in a way that recognizes that they are born of historic and systemic inequality and racism, but that also brings along all Americans, because it's not only us as much as this moment has been about African Americans. We also have to be mindful of how systematic reform can lift up all of us and reduce the disparities that have become so glaring in our society.
Folks, Susan Rice, the book is called Tough Love, My Story of the Things Worth Fighting For. Glad to have you on the show. Look forward to you coming back.
Great to be with you, Roland. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks a lot. Take care. All right, folks, Seek.com. These headphones here, these 360-degree 4D headphones. Mary Spio, she is the founder and the creator, the inventor of this. You can get these, folks, these 360-degree 4D headphones, good for listening to music, videos, gaming, you name it. All you got to do is go to Seek.com. There's a promo code you can use, RMVIP2020, RMVIP2020 for you to get this. Also the VR headset, so you can check out the products there on Seek.com. And so check it out. And so we certainly appreciate them partnering with us at Roland Martin Unfiltered.
You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible.
Now, this spring, a team working under Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, produced a plan for an aggressive, coordinated national COVID-19 testing plan that was supposed to have brought the pandemic under control. After assembling a team that came up with this plan, Kushner then decided, okay, we're just going to scrap it. Now, today on Capitol Hill, you, of course, had all of the drama on Capitol Hill. You were dealing with Dr. Anthony Fauci testifying, and then Jim Jordan was his, usual making an ass out of himself. And so just listen to some of the back and forth that was going on in this hearing. Go ahead, y'all.
Do protests increase the spread of the virus?
Do protests increase the spread of the virus? I think I can make a general statement.
Well, 500,000 protesters on June 6th alone. Yeah. I'm just asking that number of people, does it increase the spread of the virus?
Crowding together, particularly when you're not wearing a mask, contributes to the spread of the virus.
Should we limit the protesting?
I'm not sure what you mean. How do we say limit the protesting?
Should government limit the protesting?
I don't think that's relevant to.
Well, you just said if it increases the spread of the virus, I'm just asking, should we limit it?
Well, I'm not in a position to determine what the government can do in a forceful way.
Well, you make all kinds of recommendations. You make comments on dating, on baseball, on everything you can imagine. I'm just asking you just said that protests increase the spread. I'm just asking you, should we try to limit the protests?
No, I think I would leave that to people who have more of a position to do that. I can tell you.
Government stopping people from going to church, Dr. Fauci.
Yeah.
Last week in the Calvary Chapel case, 5 liberals on the Supreme Court said it was okay for Nevada to limit church services. Justice Gorsuch said it best. He said there's no world in which the Constitution permits Nevada to favor Caesar's Palace over Calvary Chapel. I'm just asking, is there a world where the Constitution says you can favor one First Amendment liberty, protesting, over another, practicing your faith?
I'm not favoring anybody over anybody. I'm just making a statement that's a broad statement that avoid crowds of any type, no matter where you are, because that leads to the acquisition and transmission. And I don't judge one crowd versus another crowd. When you're in a crowd, particularly if you're not wearing a mask, that induces the spread.
It's a simple question, doctor. Should we limit the protests? Government is obviously limiting people going to church. And look, there's been no violence that I can see at church. I haven't seen people during a church service go out and harm police officers or burn buildings. But we know that, I mean, for 63 days.
Rob, you're from Ohio. There's nothing like it. I mean, Jim Jordan's one of the biggest asses on Capitol Hill. Here's what's interesting about Jim Jordan's question. Should government limit protests? Government actually can't limit protests. The reason Fauci is making the statement is that actually people are assembling on their own. What government does, what government can do, like for instance, when government says we're closing the beaches, okay, government actually can't say, no, we're taking tickets. There are only going to be 50 people at this protest. That's really what Fauci was saying. Fauci was saying, see, Jordan wanted him to say no protest. That's what he said. He said, I'm saying no mass groups.
No, I mean, he made it clear. And Jim Jordan is he's an asshole. I don't know, he's a lot of things, but he shouldn't be in office. And you would point out to me, he is from Ohio. I don't claim him, though. And some people do. He got elected somehow. I don't know. But he is trying to set up this false narrative. He's trying to get his base said they're trying to take away your right to go to church while they go out there and protest for crazy things like making sure black people's lives matter and don't get killed. And they're trying to rile up their base and set up like the government is trying to stop you from exercising your right, but letting those people exercise their right. We know what they're doing. And, you know, we have to make sure people get out, vote, and end not only Trump, but Trumpism, which stands for this, which stands for dividing people along race, that says our lives doesn't matter. That's, you know, I'm sure you talked about this. The current president occupying the White House said he wants to delay the election. They want to just make up new rules. That's what they want to do.
Lauren, again, you're sitting here, and I'm looking at all these conservatives on social media. Oh, Fauci, he wouldn't say the words. He wouldn't say the words. The man said there should not be mass gathering of people anywhere because that is helping to spread the disease.
Yeah, I mean, what can you say, right? We're sitting here with 152,000 Americans dead in a pandemic. We have some of the worst rates of infection and death on the planet. Anthony Fauci has been a doctor his entire life, obviously worked on the AIDS crisis, obviously a renowned physician. And unfortunately, as part of his job, he has to sit and listen to stupid, inane questions by idiots that get elected to Congress from people who are dumb enough to vote for them. And it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to watch. It's particularly embarrassing and dangerous when we have, you know, over 1 million people infected and over 152,000 dead and counting. And we don't know when that count ends. And so it's shameful, really. I mean, it doesn't get any worse than Jim Jordan and his idiot friends. You know, it's just stupid. The fact that, you know, you want to reroute the narrative, you want to make a YouTube tape for yourself, for your constituents to look at, or for you to put on your website, and that has become the reason that you sit in Congress. That has become the reason that you are questioning a physician is trying to save lives in this country and waste everybody's time, waste that physician's time, waste precious time off the clock as people are dying. It doesn't get any more embarrassing. It doesn't get any more stupid. I do think we're probably going to see some sort of a wave election on November 3rd, because at some point, you know, people have had enough. And when you have 40 million people who file for unemployment and this many people dead, maybe perhaps this is the moment. One could only hope so, because I don't know what else can happen to convince some of these people to stop voting for these idiots to come into Congress and sit and ask dumbass questions.
So hold on. So Derek, I'm about to show another idiot. This is really funny. So this guy, Blaine.
Why are these people idiots and Democrats not?
No, because no, I'm about to wait, because I'm about to explain to you. So here's a guy, Representative Blaine Luetkemeyer, whatever it is. He's a farmer. He later owned a bank and worked as an insurance agent. And so Fauci, who's a doctor, they're talking about hydrochloroquine. Listen to this exchange.
You made a comment a while ago with regards to hydroxychloroquine, and I have a
an article here that quotes the Henry Ford Health System, who did an extensive study on hydroxychloroquine, and they say that it significantly reduces the death rate of COVID patients. The study was highly analyzed by peer-reviewed, unlike many other studies, and quoting the executive officer said, as doctors and scientists, we look at the data for insight, and the data here is clear. There was a benefit to using the drug as a treatment for sick and hospitalized patients. And in talking with a lot of older doctors who have been around a while, and I trust their judgment and their use of hydroxychloroquine, they say that the initial studies didn't really use zinc with it. And they say that zinc is an enabler to be able to help hydroxychloroquine actually do its job of going after and reducing deaths in patients. Had a long conversation with a doctor earlier in the week, and he said, yes, as long as zinc is there, it really definitely does work. Without it, it's minimally effective. Would you like to comment on that?
Thank you for that opportunity to comment. The Henry Ford Hospital study that was published was a non-controlled retrospective cohort study that was confounded by a number of issues, including the fact that many of the people who were receiving hydroxychloroquine were also receiving corticosteroids, which we know from another study gives a clear benefit in reducing deaths with advanced disease. So that study is a flawed study, and I think anyone who examines it carefully is that it is not a randomized placebo-controlled trial.
It says peer-reviewed.
It doesn't matter. You can peer review something that's a bad study, but the fact is it is not a randomized placebo-controlled trial. The point that I think is important, because we all want to keep an open mind, any and all of the randomized placebo-controlled trials, which is the gold standard of determining if something is effective, none of them had shown any efficacy for hydroxychloroquine.
Derek, he's like, but it's peer-reviewed.
Well, first of all, I'm baffled and don't understand at what point, when in history, have peer reviews not been taken seriously?
Because the point. No, hold on. You said when? The point that Fauci was stating is.
The second thing I want to ask is.
Hold on, you asked the first one. Let's answer it. Hold on, you asked the first one. Hold on, wait. You asked the first one. Can we answer the first one before you go to the second one?
No, I'm not finished.
No, wait, hold on. No, you said. And
I said second. Let me finish.
Hold up. We're gonna answer the first one, and then you can ask the second one. So to answer.
That's how I want to do it.
Well, that's how I want to do it. Derek, that's how we're going to do it. We're going to answer one question. Derek. It's like when I have two questions. I ask the first one, get an answer to it, then I ask the second one. Well, right. No, but that's actually how hosts do it. So, here's the deal. No. So you asked, of course we're going to do it my way. So you asked, how is it a peer review? So here's it. No. I'm going to bring all three of you in. You asked peer review.
No, you asked me a question.
Fauci, Derek, Fauci answered it. He said just because it's. Hold on. This is the deal. This is just real simple. I'm going to play again Fauci's answer. I want you to listen. No, I want you to listen to it. Hold up. You asked, when do we not pay attention to peer review? Fauci answered it. Folks, press play. Press play, folks.
That's Fauci.
Press play.
For that opportunity to comment. The Henry Ford Hospital study that was published was a non-controlled retrospective cohort study that was confounded by a number of issues, including the fact that many of the people who were receiving hydroxychloroquine were also receiving corticosteroids, which we know from another study gives a clear benefit in reducing deaths with advanced disease. So that study is a flawed study, and I think anyone who examines it carefully is that it is not a randomized placebo-controlled trial.
It says peer-reviewed.
It doesn't matter. You can peer review something that's a bad study, but the fact is it is not a randomized placebo-controlled.
Okay, so Derek, he just said you can
let me finish.
He can say you can peer review a bad study. That answers your question.
The next thing I was going to say, if I can ever finish on your show.
Go ahead.
Everybody on this panel has, didn't agree with their doctor and we got a second opinion. Why the hell does Dr. Fauci got to be the end all to be all? We can get a second opinion, because there are other doctors who disagree with Dr. Fauci. And they have PhDs just like him, and they're not wrong for disagreeing with Dr. Fauci.
I got a question for you.
I'm not wrong for disagreeing with what y'all have to say.
Actually, if we're stating facts and you're not stating facts, then you could be wrong. But Rob, here's the deal. Rob, here's the deal. This is the person who is the head of the what? NIH. This is the person who. Well, of course you don't care, but this is the person. This is the person who. No, he's just not just a doctor. There's like he's not that. Rob, he's just not that crazy woman down in Texas who believed in demon sperm and demon DNA. No, and so no, it's actually it's not my opinion. It's my opinion, but also if I hold up Fauci and the crazy sister in Texas, I'm probably not going to listen to the crazy sister in Texas who says there is demon sperm. Rob, go ahead. Rob, go ahead. Rob, go ahead. Rob is talking.
Not much of a different opinion when it comes to this. There are things that we know, and unfortunately, the right has become an exercise in stupidity. Like, who can be dumbest the fastest? We're arguing science. We're arguing that.
Rob is talking. Rob is talking. Finish your point, then I'll go to another guest. Go ahead.
Yeah, we're arguing if the Earth spins. We're arguing if the Earth is flat. Like they're arguing facts. It's not about saying, Dr. Fauci is the end-all be-all. Dr. Fauci is talking about how science works, and what Republicans are trying to do is pretend just like you do with climate change, like, oh, that doesn't exist, and that's just made up. No, these are facts. Like 99% of doctors agree, and people that are looking at the facts and reasoning, not trying to make a president look not bad because he's a fool. And because Dr. Fauci is doing his job and you have an incompetent White House, these people are doing everything possible to deflect and blame things on Dr. Fauci because you have an incompetent person in the White House. Like, we need to just follow science. We could have saved a lot more people had we not followed science.
One second, I'm bringing Lauren in. Lauren, this is the thing. Lauren, this is the thing for me that is quite interesting. So when you hear Fauci talk about controlled, when you hear him talk about placebo, he's talking about how doctors and scientists actually properly assess drugs. He's laying out protocol. Excuse me, the member of Congress, Lauren, he's like, but it's peer reviewed. He's like, yeah, but they didn't follow the traditional protocols that you go through. Lauren, go ahead.
Yeah, so last I checked, Anthony Fauci is an immunologist. He's a doctor, went to medical school. Last I checked, Jim Jordan's a wrestling coach. Now, if you want to argue whether or not today is Friday, that's fine. You want to argue whether or not today is, the day in July, that's fine. But if we stick to facts, I think I'm going to trust a doctor that has like a medical degree before any of these members of Congress, to the exclusion of some of the doctors in Congress who are very smart. But, we've watched Rand Paul, who's a physician as well, ask some of the dumbest questions of Anthony Fauci in committee. I mean, at some point, you have to get serious when, like I said, 150,000 people are dead. This is not a situation, this is an unprecedented situation with people dying by the tens of thousands. And we've got members of Congress that want to play games in a hearing with the top physician on this issue so that they can make a little video for themselves to turn on their base for the election. Like I said, it's shameful, it's embarrassing, and I think that the Republican Party is going to pay a huge price this November. And that's why you see things like the Lincoln Project, because half the party has figured out we can't continue to be this stupid in public. And hopefully that bears some fruit on Election Day. This is why you got the president trying to steal the election with his nonsense, because he knows it's coming. And all the polls and all the indicators indicate that, in fact, we are going to have a realignment in November.
All right, so I do want, I'm going to let Derek respond. I want to play this soundbite from Congressman Jim Clyburn from today's hearing before I do so. Go.
Can you help us understand why? While Europe has largely contained the virus, the United States has seen a continued rise in new cases.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The answer to that question is really somewhat complex, but I'll try maybe to very briefly go through what I believe are at least some of the factors that were involved. If you look at what happened in Europe when they shut down or locked down or went to shelter in place, however you want to describe it, they really did it to the tune of about 95+% of the country did that. When you actually look at what we did, even though we shut down, even though it created a great deal of difficulty, we really functionally shut down only about 50% in the sense of the totality of the country, which means when we reached our peak, as they did, they came down almost to a low baseline, as you've shown very clearly. But take a look at what happened to our baseline. We came up, down, and then we plateaued at about 20,000 cases a day. So we started off with a very difficult baseline of transmission that was going on at the time that we tried to open up the country. And when we opened up the country, what we saw, particularly most recently in the southern states, was an increase of cases to 20, 30, 40, 50, and a couple of weeks ago it was up to 70,000 per day, and now it's down between 50 and 60. And the reasons for that are complex. There were some states that did it very well, and there are some states that did not. And when I say did not, I mean, we put out, as Ranking Member Scalise mentioned, the guidelines of a gateway, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Some were followed very carefully and some were not.
Derek, the reason I thought that was important because every time we hear Donald Trump talk, he's like, oh, we're doing great. We're doing great, but way better than Europe. Oh, we have tested more. We're doing more. So why are we still seeing 60 and 70,000 cases? That's leadership. That's leadership. That's leadership. And unfortunately, because you asked earlier, why is this political? Because part of the problem is that where we're seeing the skyrocketing cases in states led by Republican governors who are refusing to listen to the doctors.
I don't know if that's the case in every state, Roland. Different. Look, they laid it out. Initially, the states were like, oh, we don't want the federal government involved. We want to do it ourselves. So it's like, okay, we'll come up with a plan.
Actually, that's not what the states
do. I'll never get to finish my statement.
But that's a factually incorrect statement.
What is incorrect?
The states actually said we're looking for the federal government to lead, and then when Donald Trump said, hey, this y'all problem, they were like, well, damn, we got to figure this amongst ourselves. That's actually what happened.
So the states are rolled out the plan, Roland. Did they not?
No.
Did the states roll out the plan?
No, the states. No. The states said, federal government, where is the national plan? Donald Trump was like, yo, this on y'all. And the states then, different states and regions got together and said, since he is not going to lead, we have...
Listen to you.
No. But you said, they then said, we...
Listen to you, bro.
No, you just said something that's just factually incorrect. You said the states rolled their plan out. The states rolled their plan out after the federal government refused to implement a national plan. They had no choice. And the problem was, it wasn't all states. Most of your southern states were like, nope, no to mask mandates. Nope, we're not going to shut everything down. Nope, we're not going to do widespread testing because they were all following Donald Trump's lead.
Correct.
So what happened? In May.
Here's my thing. If y'all have all the answers, let me put you in contact with some folks. Because y'all have all the answers.
No.
And if y'all have all the answers, y'all been keeping them to yourself.
No, actually.
Let me put you in contact with some folks.
Actually, the people you want to put us in.
Y'all got all the answers. Actually, these people don't know what they're doing.
Actually, the people you want to put us in contact with ain't listening to their own experts.
Listen, I'm trying to put you in contact because y'all got all the answers.
Doesn't know what it. Governor DeSantis doesn't know what he's doing.
All the answers.
Hold on. Derek, in May, Ron DeSantis stood in front of the media outside of the White House with Vice President Mike Pence and wagged his finger, and y'all said we were going to see spikes. And y'all said we were going to see deaths. And he was going on and on and on. He said, we haven't seen none of that. Y'all owe me an apology. 4 weeks later, spikes,
deaths skyrocketing. And then it was
let me throw out a date. In January, the president shut down travel from Europe.
Actually, he didn't.
Joe Biden said he was a xenophobe for doing that. Remember that? Nancy Pelosi said, come on down to Chinatown.
No, Derek. Let me also give you a fact. Donald Trump gave an interview. No. Donald Trump, Derek, let me help you. Donald Trump gave an interview on CNBC. He said there's one person from China with it in America. A week later, he said, a week later, Donald Trump said, we have 15 cases in America. We'll soon be down to 0. That actually came out of his mouth. Right now, Derek, we have 152,000 dead.
Okay.
Well, it's
Derek. You got all the answers.
Rob, go ahead.
Hold on a second, Derek. We're not saying we have all the answers. We can just tell, we know it's Friday. We know it's Friday. We know some certain facts. And, no matter how much you might want to defend somebody because they're from your party, this guy is not doing a good job.
I'm not defending anyone, Ron.
Hold on.
I'm not defending anyone.
Hold on. Relax. All I'm saying is Trump. Wait a minute. Trump has done not only a bad job, he's done a horrible job. He's both incompetent and corrupt. And now he's put people's lives at risk just because he wanted to prove a political point. Honestly, had he been a normal president, he probably would have had a chance to pivot from this and show some leadership. A normal president would have taken the reins, would have said, this is our national response. He refused to do that. And then you have governors like Governor DeSantis, which he said we're going to be you guys were saying that we were going to have all these deaths, just like Roland said. They have surpassed New York, surpassed them. We have full leaders. We have the guy, the governor of Georgia, who is trying to get rid of mask mandates just to look good for Trump. That's stupid. That's not. And so I want to say this: we do have a Republican governor here in Ohio who has rejected what Trump has done. He's not been perfect, but he's tried to actually go for the evidence here in Ohio. He's done that.
Same as a Republican governor in Maryland, Larry Hogan, because you have.
So it's not Republican. It's common sense.
Right. But that's it. Right. In fact, the governor of Alabama, Kay Ivey, she said, no, we're gonna have a mask mandate. We're gonna close businesses down.
Y'all validated my point. Why is it gotta be political? That's all I was saying.
Because
you got Republican governor here,
because
why it gotta be political every time it's somebody else's mouth?
Because most of the stupid people who are making decisions are Republicans.
And they put us in this position. Let me say this, because hey, Derek.
Rob, 20 seconds, next story, go.
I'll be very quick. Wearing a mask became political because Trump said, I'm not going to go out and wear a mask. And then suddenly he wears a mask and now it's saving people's lives. He should have done that from the beginning. It shouldn't be political. This is stupid.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
It's time to be smart. When we control our institutions, we win. This is the most important news show on television of any racial background. Y'all put $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 on this and keep this going. What you've done, Roland, since this crisis came out in full bloom. Anybody watching this, tell your friends. Go back and look at the last 2 weeks, especially of Roland Martin Unfiltered. Go back and look at the last 2 days. You've had sitting United States senators today, Klobuchar and Harris. Whatever you have you can bring to Roland Martin Unfiltered to support it, please do, because this information may literally save your life.
Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. Roland Martin Unfiltered.